CMIS 3224. Web Designing and E-Commerce. CSS Part 2. CSS height and width. The height and width properties are used to set the height and width of an element. CSS height and width values. The height and width properties may have the following values. Auto, this is default. The browser calculates the height and width. Link defines the height width in px, centimeters etc. % defines the height width in % of the containing block. Initial sets the height width to its default value. Inherit, the height width will be inherited from its parent value. We have a div. Add some style to div. Set a percentage value to width. Width, take 50% from the screen. Setting max width. The max width property is used to set the maximum width of an element. The max width can be specified in length values, like pixel, centimeters, etc., or in % of the containing block, or set to none. This is default. Means that there is no maximum width. The problem with the div above occurs when the browser window is smaller than the width of the element, 500 pixel. The browser then adds a horizontal scrollbar to the page. Using max width instead, in this situation, will improve the browser's handling of small windows. Tip: drag the browser window to smaller than 500 pixel wide to see the difference between the two divs. Note: the value of the max width property overrides width. All CSS dimension properties. CSS box model. All HTML elements can be considered as boxes. In CSS, the term box model is used when talking about design and layout. The CSS box model is essentially a box that wraps around every HTML element. It consists of margins, borders, padding, and the actual content. The image below illustrates the box model. Explanation of the different parts. Content: the content of the box, where text and images appear. Padding clears an area around the content. The padding is transparent. Border: a border that goes around the padding and content. Margin clears an area outside the border. The margin is transparent. The box model allows us to add a border around elements and to define space between elements. The total width of an element should be calculated like this. Total element width equal to width plus left padding plus right padding plus left border plus right border plus left margin plus right margin. The total height of an element should be calculated like this. Total element height equal to height plus top padding plus bottom padding plus top border plus bottom border plus top margin plus bottom margin. 320. Width. 20 pixel, left plus right padding. 10 pixel, left plus right border. 10 pixel, left plus right margin. Total 350 pixel. CSS padding. The CSS padding properties are used to generate space around an element's content inside of any defined borders. Padding individual sides. CSS has properties for specifying the padding for each side of an element. Padding top. Padding right. Padding bottom. Padding left. All the padding properties can have the following values. Length. Specifies a padding in pixel, pt, centimeters, etc. %. Specifies a padding in % of the width of the containing element. Inherit specifies that the padding should be inherited from the parent element. Note: negative values are not allowed. We have a div. Division style. Padding from 4 sides. Top 10. Right 30. Bottom 40. Left 5. Padding shorthand property. To shorten the code, it is possible to specify all the padding properties in one property. The padding property is a shorthand property for the following individual padding properties: padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. So, here is how it works. If the padding property has 4 values, O top padding is 25 pixel, O right padding is 50 pixel, O bottom padding is 75 pixel, O left padding is 100 pixel. If the padding property has 3 values, O top padding is 25 pixel, O right and left paddings are 50 pixel, O bottom padding is 75 pixel. O if the padding property has 2 values, O top and bottom paddings are 25 pixel, O right and left paddings are 50 pixel. O if the padding property has 1 value, O all 4 paddings are 25 pixel. We already set 4 values for the paddings. Set those values in a single line. Remove one value. Left and right same padding. Remove another value. Top bottom same value. Remove another value. Both values are same. Padding and element width. The CSS width property specifies the width of the element's content area. The content area is the portion inside the padding, border, and margin of an element. So, if an element has a specified width, the padding added to that element will be added to the total width of the element. This is often an undesirable result. We have 2 divs. Division calls ex1 and ex2. Division, ex1. Division, ex2. Add a padding 25. Now total equal to width and padding. Border box. Now it's equal to 300. CSS border. The CSS border properties allow you to specify the style, width, and color of an element's border. CSS border style. The border style property specifies what kind of border to display. The following values are allowed: dotted, dashed, solid, double, groove, ridge, inset, outset, none, hidden. We have many paragraphs. Each paragraph have different classes. Let's set different styles. CSS, border width. The border width property specifies the width of the 4 borders. The width can be set as a specific size, in pixel, pt, centimeters, m, etc., or by using one of the three pre-defined values: thin, medium, or thick. The border width property can have from 1 to 4 values for the top border, right border, bottom border, and the left border. We have 3 paragraphs. Border width thin. Border width medium. Border width thick. The border width property can have from 1 to 4 values for the top border, right border, bottom border, and the left border. Border width 4 different values. Border width 2 different values. Border width 2 different values. CSS border color. The border color property is used to set the color of the 4 borders. The color can be set by name, specify a color name, like red. Hex, specify a hex value, like number FF0000. RGB, specify a RGB value, like RGB 25500. HSL, specify a HSL value, like HSL 0, 100%, 50%. Transparent. Note: if border color is not set, it inherits the color of the element. The border color property can have from 1 to 4 values for the top border, right border, bottom border, and the left border. 5 different paragraphs. Border color red. Add 4 different colors to border. Red color in different ways. CSS, border sides. In CSS, there are also properties for specifying each of the borders, top, right, bottom, and left. If the border style property has 4 values: border style, dotted solid double dashed. O top border is dotted. O right border is solid. O bottom border is double. O left border is dashed. If the border style property has 3 values: border style, dotted solid double. O top border is dotted. O right and left borders are solid. O bottom border is double. If the border style property has 2 values: border style, dotted solid. O top and bottom borders are dotted. O right and left borders are solid. If the border style property has 1 value: border style, dotted. O all 4 borders are dotted. 4 paragraphs. One style. 2 styles. Three styles. Four styles. CSS, shorthand border property. Shorten the code, it is also possible to specify all the individual border properties in one property. The border property is a shorthand property for the following individual border properties. Border width. Border style, required. Border color. You can also specify all the individual border properties for just one side. Paragraph width, style and color. In same line. Specified side. Border for two sides. CSS, rounded borders. The border radius property is used to add rounded borders to an element. CSS margins. The CSS margin properties are used to create space around elements outside of any defined borders. With CSS, you have full control over the margins. There are properties for setting the margin for each side of an element: top, right, bottom, and left. Margin individual sides. CSS has properties for specifying the margin for each side of an element. Margin top. Margin right. Margin bottom. Margin left. All the margin properties can have the following values. Auto, the browser calculates the margin. Length specifies a margin in pixel, pt, centimeters, etc. Percent specifies a margin in percent of the width of the containing element. Inherit specifies that the margin should be inherited from the parent element. Tip: negative values are allowed. Margin four sides. Margin shorthand property. To shorten the code, it is possible to specify all the margin properties in one property. The margin property is a shorthand property for the following individual margin properties: margin top, margin right, margin bottom, margin left. So, here is how it works. If the margin property has 4 values: margin 25 pixel, 50 pixel, 75 pixel, 100 pixel. Top margin is 25 pixel. Right margin is 50 pixel. Bottom margin is 75 pixel. Left margin is 100 pixel. If the margin property has 3 values: margin 25 pixel, 50 pixel, 75 pixel. Top margin is 25 pixel. Right and left margins are 50 pixel. Bottom margin is 75 pixel. If the margin property has 2 values: margin 25 pixel, 50 pixel. Top and bottom margins are 25 pixel. Right and left margins are 50 pixel. If the margin property has 1 value: margin 25 pixel, all 4 margins are 25 pixel. Margin in single line. Remove 1 value. Remove 2 values. Remove 3 values. The auto value. You can set the margin property to auto to horizontally center the element within its container. The element will then take up the specified width, and the remaining space will be split equally between the left and right margins. Margin auto. Auto adjust the margin. Margin collapse. Top and bottom margins of elements are sometimes collapsed into a single margin that is equal to the largest of the 2 margins. This does not happen on left and right margins. Only top and bottom margins. In the example above, the H1 element has a bottom margin of 50 pixel, and the H2 element has a top margin set to 20 pixel. Common sense would seem to suggest that the vertical margin between the H1 and the H2 would be a total of 70 pixel, 50 pixel plus 20 pixel. But due to margin collapse, the actual margin ends up being 50 pixel. H1 bottom margin 100. H2 top margin 110. H2 margin 50. But it's not equal to 150. Common sense would seem to suggest that the vertical margin between the H1 and the H2 would be a total of 105 pixel, 100 pixel plus 5 pixel. But due to margin collapse, the actual margin ends up being 100 pixel. See you in next video.